Hello, I'm Simon Calder. Welcome to another episode of Back to the City. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by my good old friend Elizabeth
Yes.
from ELOUR.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So we're going to be taking a journey through Blood Running, which is your new record. On June 9th, Friday, June 9th, you're at the VFW.
Correct.
The day after Dr. Simon R. Calder's record release.
Yay, now I'm like, I gotta make a mental note to get there 2 days in a row.
We've known one another a very long time. Like a decade ago or so.
Let's not age us.
We didn't exist a decade ago. We were too young
like
to be
babies.
playing music.
Yeah, no, it's been a long time.
And we even shared a practice space at some point.
I was just
with the
thinking
previous
about
band.
that. Like, that was the first ELOUR practice space.
The first manifestation of ELOUR. When I had my band Infinities.
Yeah.
And
You were there. You were literally sitting there, like, doing like paperwork or something.
I was a normal Dr. Calder who was a professor grading papers in the practice space.
Yeah,
that we shared because it was my band and your band.
No, you just let us use it.
Oh, that's correct.
You like literally asked the band you shared it with, can I let this other band, they need a space, like could they use it for a couple weeks? And they're like, only if you like are there like monitoring them or something to make sure like we didn't like steal anything. I don't know.
Which meant that I got to witness the first ELOUR practice.
I think it was some of the beginning, the early stages. Because I think our first show, we had like a residency at the 331. And so that's what we were getting ready for. And it was like, we didn't even have, we didn't really have songs yet.
Did you have Good Girl at that point?
Yes. I think I had Good Girl that I still play and The Look in Your Eyes that I still play.
Yeah.
Because they kind of started like from the Hayburn, like when I was transitioning out of the Hayburners into ELOUR, they kind of were like, they weren't the country. I was like, I don't want to do them like country.
Good Girl has the lowest BPM of all of the songs on Blood Running.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
We tend to like just get amped anyway though. Like they're all like, ah. I'm like, okay, we need to like have some chill songs where we don't sound like, yikes.
And The Look in Your Eyes is...
I feel like one of our lower vibe songs too.
Yeah, although the BPM is 138. I like that I have the BPMs. That's helpful.
And I'm like, what are they, Simon? So we can practice. We can practice them, get it right.
And we're talking beats per minute, of course, is what we're talking about. You had the very end of the record excluding Up All Night. That's very different from Hayburners, your previous band. It's one of the most different, I think. The final track
Up All
of the
Night,
record.
yeah. That's just kind of like a crazy. It's supposed to feel crazy.
It's awful.
It is hard to actually pull off live because it is a little crazy.
Yeah, it's produced so well, I think, and it's...
Jason Shannon, Zoo School.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about the production on that particular song? It's such a good album closer, I think.
He did a lot of that, like kind of the effect stuff, like the stuff that sounds like digital kind of vibe. He did a lot of that on his own. I kind of was like the opera thing. That was me, because I just wanted it to have...
Because you're classically trained.
Yes, and there are some friends and family that are like, why are you singing like so ugly now? Because like I do a lot of like yelling, like Up All Night is kind of like, it's kind of got that like, feeling. And then it has this like triumphant, we're like in that part, like, I felt like it was kind of like a band leader, kind of like 4th of July vibe.
Yes.
So I wanted it to be like God bless America kind of feeling.
Yes.
So that's why I was like, ooh, I think the opera kind of will add this sort of heightened, I don't know, this just kind of old school heightened, take it kind of away from this angry part, just to have a break, and also to show kind of these like two extremes in a way. But then it goes back to like, I'm fighting like a rally,
Yes. And in that section, I'm fighting, something you choose not to see. I think the theme, the reason why it works so well as the album closer for me is the theme of pain and hidden pain comes in again here. So in Ha, which I love that it's called Ha rather than Blood Running. It's the closest that we get to the title track.
Yeah.
That song pulls off a really interesting maneuver that I think some of the other ones do too, insofar as it's like, it asks a question, is my pain funny? And then it shifts to, my pain isn't funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that songs like Beautiful Girl also kind of ventriloquize at the beginning. You're just a beautiful girl, it opens doors, this is all you are.
Mm-hmm.
But then of course the song asserts, well actually no,
Yeah,
I'm not just a beautiful girl.
And like there's both sides too. It's like if you are the beautiful girl, it does open doors. If you aren't the, but then you're like, oh, they only got that because they're pretty. And then if you're not beautiful, then it's like, there's like two sides to that coin too, of like that expectation that you're supposed to be beautiful, but then you're also scorned for being beautiful too.
These songs really grapple with the painful, difficult process of navigating being seen as something, ideas being projected on the person, how that can get in the way of living.
And finding like who you really are too, because you kind of have to like fight through all these things that like people, our society put on us, your family put on us, what we like have interpreted, are the own personal myths that we have.
Absolutely.
And it is interesting because it's like, I feel like I'm still trying to like piece through these things to be like, who am I?
And you're sharing your process of doing so.
Yeah, and I want to show like kind of that ugly, that's what, when I had some friends like say like, we don't like you yelling like that because you have a very good voice and you're not really like showing it as often, like you're not showing it off, and I said,
it's
this
supposed
is
to sound beautiful and classical.
Yeah, and I was like, I really was, I don't feel like I knew that there was other options, that I had other options to kind of express different feelings. And that's why I want to express that raw, something that a lot of people experience that they don't share because it is kind of ashamed about it.
Absolutely.
And it's like
it needs
embarrassing.
to be vocalized.
So I guess sometimes I think I could do like a better job of like stepping away from the mic so everybody's not like, ugh, that scream, and
The screams are essential.
I think so, and I've heard people say they're shrill. And I said, that's such an interesting word because it's really only used for, a female like myself.
Yes, absolutely.
As like a negative. And I'm like, yeah, I am kind of shrill sometimes. It's like, and it's funny because whose voices like on the radio are people annoyed by? It's mostly like females because they're higher. And we've been, like I've even worked on, trying to make songs lower because that's more appealing to, I think, and I don't want to say anything that a high voice isn't appealing because I believe it is, but I feel like there is this sense like when you listen to radio voices that people like a lower octaves or, and I kind of wonder why is that? Is it really that sounds better, or have we just been taught that sounds better?
Right.
Because we don't like shrill, annoying, neggy, you know?
We don't like the emotions of lust, rage, or anger, which will get referenced in the one sheet.
Yeah.
That you share. And there's projection of that onto women.
Yeah,
so
I mean, that's, and maybe not like the younger, I feel like younger people coming out, like they are kind of forging their own path, with like gender identities. And, but I know that when I was growing up, we were still put in like very clear boxes of who we were supposed to be.
Yeah.
And definitely you were not supposed to display anger as a female because it was just not an emotion that I feel like you were allowed have or publicly display.
Yeah, you're supposed
You know.
to be a good girl.
A good girl, yeah.
Like in this
And you
song.
can't be a good girl if you're angry. So, yeah.
It's interesting, kind of circling back to that song, and before the interview, I was the lyric.
I love that, like, you know my lyrics better than I do. Like, what did I say?
Well, I've been sitting with them.
I know.
But
You're so good. I'm just like, I
don't
don't
let
know.
them put you in a pretty box with a tight sealed top.
Okay, can I just say that I don't like that? Whenever I sing that lyric, I feel so stupid. I was like,
Why?
I could,
Why do you
well, I
not
feel
like
like
the
I could
lyric?
have said that in a better way. I just like never found it. And I'm like, that's so,
Something like this needs to be said, I think.
yeah, I guess it's just kind of an ugly part to sing. So we kind of, I always do it like tight sealed top, like something kind of funny. Yeah, I mean, it is just putting people in a box, you know, just like this is all you are. This is like labels in general do that.
Yep.
And it's not just for women. We like to put people in boxes in general, like as humans, I feel like we like to do that because we want to try to make sense. We have to make
Yeah.
sense of things. And it's like, if you could just easily put someone there, then you're just like, you figured them out, move on. So that's really hard because nobody fits in a box. Nobody,
Right.
even people that you think are like, oh, that person definitely is in a box. Like if you really know them, none of us do. We have these other things, these desires.
Absolutely.
And
We were talking about this
yeah.
prior to the interview. I brought up internal family systems
Yeah.
therapy, and words that show up in the first couple of songs on the record. Etiquette is one.
Yeah.
And then conventional. You're too conventional for me
Yeah.
in Waste of My Time.
I mean,
and
yeah.
pulling bullshit on your etiquette in Reputation. Person who has good etiquette, person who is very conventional, it's highly likely that they are disowning the quote unquote bad parts, the angry part, the lustful, the rageful part, and it's highly likely that these will kind of come out sideways.
Yeah.
therefore.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think I love how your music, the lyrics, but then also sonically as well, with the thing that we're not going to call shrill, however we describe at the moments, the beautiful.
Raw. I call it like kind of raw.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so these raw, expressive moments, there is something very healthy about allowing that to be expressed at the same time as.
But if it comes
easy.
out sideways,
Yeah.
which it often does come out sideways because it is often like squashed. I mean, in my life, I feel like I have been like, it's fine, everything's fine. So it's been squashed, and when it has come out, like in my later life, it's been really sideways, like crazy. So, you know, I do feel like getting it out this way is much healthier.
Yes.
And I feel like even when I perform these songs, like I can kind of like hone in on different experiences that I've really felt those emotions. So they're like, it is kind of like a genuine, like a cathartic for me.
Yes.
It's like to get that out, you know, and it does feel good. And yeah, I can see like how repressed I've, been.
Yeah, and through seeing that to be the case with yourself, then how pervasive repression is in the culture
I
in
mean,
general.
I'd assume there's a lot of other people like
It's not
me.
just you. You're
but
not
maybe
an
they're
alien.
just better
You're-
at like hiding it.
which might end up worse.
I
for
don't
them,
know.
Potentially.
Yeah.
So everything that we've been saying reminds me of this brilliant, I think, artist description here. Emotions erupt in ELOUR's punk-edged femme rock, resulting in catharsis, you just mentioned catharsis, and empowerment. What would you say the relationship between the catharsis and empowerment is? Are there some songs where there's more catharsis, some songs that are more empowerment?
I guess it's empowering, like we were saying, to like own and accept yourself. So, I mean, I think I've been going through a lot of therapy. Well, I always have, but I've kind of gone into like a more like structured type of therapy that is really kind of looking at the ways you cope with life and the ways that you even see yourself in the world, and how, those things can be harmful, how, your reactions to things are often not about what's happening. It's about like some like internal feeling, how you see things. And I feel like this accepting piece is sort of what is empowering, because then you can see what it is, that it's like the root of all, like a lot of hate and meanness and all these things are actually like mostly hurt. Like, when you really uncover those feelings, like why am I angry? Like, and it's because like you feel hurt, like you're not seen, you're not accepted by others. And so I feel like looking at those things and uncovering what the first layer like really is trying to say is there's something buried deeper. And when you find that, I feel like there is an empowerment, because they're also kind of asking other people to like find that, and that it's okay to kind of that initial reaction, the anger, isn't really, you're not really angry. It's normally that you're hurt. And
there's a whole bunch of complexity. Again, the lyric, I'm fighting something you choose not to see, at the end of the record. There's this
just like human
unacknowledged
nature,
pain.
kind of like we all have these, like a lot of similar struggles. And that's what's interesting when we really take these like strong, like black and white sides. It's like there isn't this, everybody's trying to figure things out. We all have these struggles, and ideally, we're all doing our best to come to some sort of understanding of ourselves and therefore other people, because the more you understand yourself, the more you see like we all have these things that we feel insecure, we feel, anxious, we feel unloved, or, not included. And it's just kind of that uncovering for me has been like very important.
Absolutely, uncovering.
Yeah.
I love that. Anger is interesting, because though on the one hand we can, if there isn't an environment that fosters kind of love and care and recognizing, oh, I am actually feeling really hurt, if we're not encouraged and kind of held as we figure out how we feel and are with our complex array of feelings, we can get locked into anger, and it can be a barrier to recognizing, oh, I'm actually really sad.
Yes.
But then also on the other hand, anger does have a time and a place, and for me it has to do with boundaries and being assertive. I think there's a type of wisdom in the anger. If I'm feeling angry,
but if you really look one step further, it's like, why are you're hurt because someone's not respecting you.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it all comes back to like feeling bad, which is
I
like,
want to be respected.
It's like
I'm
the most
worthy of being
extreme
respected.
opposite of like, when someone's like crying and like, I'm just so hurt, and then the rager's like, fuck you, It's like that person is hurt.
Yes,
and
exactly.
It's just coming out so wrong.
Yes.
And then it's like, then they're like even more misunderstood, because you're like, wow, they're like an angry, hateful person, but really they're hurt.
That person is bad.
Or or they haven't figured out how to really find, they haven't wanted to look at that piece that's hurt and why is it hurt.
Yeah.
So it's like to push it away. It's like anger is like, anger is kind of the signal that there's something else. But a lot of times we don't look at that something else. We just let it stay as anger.
There's a book called Emotional Agility that was recommended to me by my good friend and ex-wife, Brooke.
Oh, I like
I love Brooke.
You should send that to me, because I already like the title. I'm like, okay, this sounds good.
And that came up when I was interviewing Brooke about Glean, about her music.
Okay.
And the influence of a book called Primal Scream and a form of therapy called Primal Scream on her music.
Okay.
And then she was saying she'd recently been reading this book, Emotional Agility, where there's the idea of emotions being like beacons. which are conveying information.
Yes.
I heard about this festival from my good friend, ex-wife, Brooke.
Yeah.
And the metaphor is very helpful, I think. Anger is the beacon. It's communicating something to me. Something is awry. I am not being respected. There's something amiss.
Or like you're uncomfortable. I mean, anger can even be like you're uncomfortable. I mean, it can just signify, you don't even know how to feel about it. So
Yes.
it's like the quickest thing to go to for some people like myself is anger.
Yes, and it's helpful
Some people
data.
like don't go to anger very quickly and they like hold it. But I'm like, if I'm feeling something, it's like that might be the first emotion I go to.
Yep, and there's helpful data, there's helpful information
Yes.
there.
And that's not really, it's not actually saying you hate, it's saying you're hurt.
Yes.
So it's kind of an interesting emotion when you think about
is
it.
quite.
Because it's very misunderstood.
Quite. The usefulness of it and the limited use of it.
Yes.
And the fact that that I can be trapped in it and it can be very alienating to, especially once then people characterize me as the angry person. Don't go near him.
Yeah, and you know what's
got a
funny,
shrill
when
voice.
I've looked at like my anger and like how it really doesn't mean that I'm like hateful. I mean, I have some issues that I'm working through. Then when I've experienced other people's anger, I've literally like stepped back and said, this is like, it's actually not about me. This person, is trying to deal with something. Not that like there's some anger when it's like violent and things like that where you're just like, oh, that's not acceptable. But I do feel like since I've been looking at my own anger, when other people have expressed it to me, their anger at me, I've tried to figure out like, well, what does that really mean? Like try not to see it as like, oh, like I'm being attacked versus like, what are they needing from me, or what do they feel like there's something that they are feeling like hurt about. It's interesting because then you're like, let's uncover this.
What are the unacknowledged, unmet needs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Not that I say that I definitely fail a lot trying to understand, and I'm not like a Zen person
that's
at all.
your commitment.
Yes,
You're
I'm
committed to
working
that.
on myself, and I feel like that's the first step to being a better person.
Yeah.
And to bringing that out in myself first, and therefore maybe encouraging other people to do it too.
This acceptance, the self-acceptance and the acceptance of others. I think it's significant what music does. Before the interview, we were lamenting a little bit about how hosts, with everything opening up again, there's during the time when people couldn't be attending live shows, people would refer to missing live music. We obviously both are quite musical people. We love making music and experiencing music, dancing, all of these kinds of things. And I think, if we talked about Brené Brown a little bit too, but she refers to laughter, song, and dance as one of 10 guideposts to wholehearted living. Music, I think, for catharsis, for empowerment, is crucial for us as humans. And so let's begin to think a little bit about the significance of the fact that your music does provide something like a kind of container here, where someone can be with anger, the raw emotion, and it doesn't just stay there. It's not like pure anger, pure just angry punk all the way through. There's joy, there's a joyfulness.
And there's like kind of like a making fun of myself too.
There is.
Like, could you like fade? Like, I don't know you very well, but could you be the one? And it's like that is true. That's been happening. I kind of like, are me and you are we gonna make this? When you meet someone, you're like, I can picture our lives together and our babies, and but that's it's also like such a silly thing when you think you don't know this person, you're already like, could you be the one? Like there's just this one that you get, so I do kind of make fun of myself too, even though that's a real thing that I do. But yeah, I do think like because a friend, I hope I hope that she doesn't listen to this because, but you know, after I sang a show, she did not like the screaming and stuff. And, you know, we talked about it. And then eventually, like, it came out, she's like, I don't get to be angry. I don't get to be sad. Like, I have to be, you know, it's like, she's like, how come you get to be angry and I don't? She's like, I'm angry.
That's excellent.
You know, and I was like, okay, well, maybe like she didn't like the music necessarily, but it did kind of make her think about herself.
That's
Like,
a good case in point.
you know, it's like, maybe it was like, she was like, oh, that's harsh, you know? But then the fact that it did make her think, hey, do I get to express this? Like, do I have a place where I, you know, get to be sad, get to be angry, get to be, you know, inappropriate a little bit, you know? Like, because we're, you know, yeah. So I feel like it was kind of a good and bad thing because it wasn't like she liked what I was doing, but then it did come about that she is like, I don't get to be that. I don't get to do that.
For him to accept and express something about herself. I'm not granted the freedom to express this part of me, and I am angry.
Yeah.
It's interesting how that's a case in point of music creating this kind of alternative context where acceptance and growth beyond the stifling kind of stuckness is allowed. And then the theme of moving beyond the stifling stuckness, for want of a better phrase, comes up in all kinds of interesting ways throughout these songs. So at the very beginning of the record, I'm tired of being pushed around, ready to shout out loud. I'm ready. There's this sense of readiness. We were talking about how a lot of the songs that are well beyond the previous act, that Hey Burners do have higher BPMs. There's a kind of sense of momentum, you know, and we're moving. But then at the end of the record, Up All Night, there's a sense of kind of careening. So once we are like allowing ourselves
that's interesting, yeah, because that's kind of an out of control song.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's like
it's artfully out of control.
It's really a party song too, you know, like, because partying can feel like a way of expressing yourself, but sometimes it's really like avoiding stuff.
Right?